Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Before making this video, I've been watching the situation in Niger. I didn't want to comment on it too quickly because I do think that this might just be the most significant development since the fall of Libya and Gaddafi. Niger, as we all know, is rich in natural resources. In all the Western media, for some reason, they keep saying one of the poorest countries in the world. But the reality is that this country has a lot of natural resources. 1/3 of the uranium that France uses comes from Niger. 25% of the uranium that EU uses comes from Niger. Also, they have gold and petroleum and other resources. So this is a very important location. On top of that, one of the main bases of US military is in Niger, and France has over 1,500 soldiers there. And this is the last location they have in Sahel. So this is a huge news. But in this video, firstly, I want to take a look at some of the reactions, how France, US, ECOWAS, and other nations around the world have reacted to this news. And also, I want to talk about the interventions that is likely to happen. Me personally, I do not think that France is going to have any sort of interventions, but I'm going to discuss some possibilities that might occur, especially with ECOWAS, and I will explain why I think that that will be a total failure. But let's get started.
Our economic and security partnership with Niger, which is significant, hundreds of millions of dollars, depends on the continuation of the democratic governance and constitutional order that has been disrupted by the actions in the last few days.
Well, look, we have watched this with deep concern, Peter. We certainly condemn any effort to detain or to subvert the functioning of Niger's democratically elected government. And we're still gathering facts here. And that government, as you know, is led by President Bazoum. We specifically urged the elements of the Presidential Guard to release him from detention and to refrain from any violence. We would advise all Americans in Niger to be careful about where they are and what they're doing. We just don't know enough about what's going on, so this is a time to put safety first.
Preliminary discussions about evacuations or anything like that?
Nothing like that right now, Peter. It's all just unfolding. We're just watching this very, very closely. We'll have to see how it unfolds.
Firstly, I just want to quickly point out that he's talking about significant investment, and he said something like a couple $100 million. You know, that's why people prefer doing business with China, because China doesn't bring hundreds of millions, they bring billions in, and they don't even call that significant. So it's quite ridiculous that one of the richest countries in terms of natural resources, you give them a couple $100 million and you're talking about, oh, we are significantly investing in them. Get out of here. It's actually quite shocking to see how passive the US government is regarding this issue. I mean, it's good to see, especially as someone who was witnessing what happened in Libya and how eagerly they destroyed that nation. But the reality is that US has too many wars going on. They have a situation in Ukraine, they are confronting China, so they don't have any time to actually deal with this issue. Which is shocking because West Africa, they've stated, is very important location to them. Most of their military bases that are on the continent is in West Africa. So losing this military base is a huge news. Let me show you something that they've said earlier.
Security, as Americans, and particularly in North America, if the Chinese are able to establish a base in West Africa.
It would change the whole calculus of the geostrategic global campaign plans of protecting the homeland. It would shorten if they build any capacity on the West Coast geostrategically, it will put them at an advantage. Right now, we have the decisive advantage. They cannot, we can't let them have a base on the West Coast because it would change the dynamics.
And now, most of the countries in West Africa are no longer under their control. I mean, I'm not saying they always used to control these countries, but they no longer have any influence to them. What happens in Mali, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in most of the West African countries, they cannot influence it anymore. And it's highly likely that these countries are going to move closer to Russia and in future possibly China. So they are taking this rather easily, which I understand because they just don't have the resources to deal with it. But let's get on to the French. who are more likely to actually intervene.
First of all, I want to make it absolutely clear that France condemns in the strongest possible terms this military coup d'etat against a courageous, democratically elected leader who is making the reforms and investments his country needs and whom we support as we did his predecessor from the outset.
Paris has strong ties with Niger. Many French troops were relocated to the country after they were forced to leave Mali and Burkina Faso.
Now, Niger Republic has suspended the export of uranium and gold to France with immediate effect amid protests in the country. Protesters in Niger burned a French flag and shouted "Down with France" as they supported the coup, sources say. According to the protesters, they still live like slaves despite rich deposits in uranium, diamonds, gold, and oil.
And we're just returning now to that lead story, the fact that the European Union has cut off financial aid to Niger, announcing it won't recognize the authorities who conducted that coup overthrowing President Mohamed Bazoum. And we've also got news in that France has suspended all development aid to Niger.
Being a French soldier in Africa nowadays is not that easy. Imagine going to 3 different countries and being kicked out from all of those. Now, France and US and EU haven't sanctioned Niger, but what they did is they cut out all the aid. Now, this is the reason why Eritrea's president was right. A lot of people laugh at him, a lot of people think he's a madman, but when he said that my country will never take aid because you will weaponize it against us. If we do something you don't like, you're going to punish our poorest people, say there's no reason for us to get any aid from you. And compare Eritrea to Niger, to Somalia, to these countries that are constantly getting Western aid money, and compare those to Eritrea. You can compare those countries to North Korea. Pretty much any country in the world that doesn't take Western aid will always do better than countries that take Western aid. Why? Because Western aid is not designed to help the poor people. It is designed to corrupt the elites. Most of the aid money goes into the pockets of the wealthy and the rich and the politicians. It is a form of corruption. And that's why it's a weapon. And that's why countries in Africa need to aim at independence, not taking any aid money, especially from the West. I haven't seen China cut off aid just because the country didn't do something that they didn't want. Now, will France intervene? Highly unlikely because of this.
The ECOWAS leaders re-emphasized that President Mohamed Bazoum remains the legitimate elected president and head of state of the Republic of Niger, as recognized by ECOWAS, the African Union, and the international community. While military intervention a possibility, ECOWAS defense chiefs announced in a communique that they will meet immediately. All economic and financial transactions between member states and ECOWAS have also been suspended.
We refuse to apply these illegal, illegitimate and inhumane sanctions against the people of Niger. We warn that any military intervention against Niger will be considered as a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali.
Any intervention that will happen in Niger will have to happen through ECOWAS. And I'm sure that if ECOWAS decides to use military power, France is going to go along with it. I mean, they will absolutely love it. And ECOWAS have done something similar before. They did this in Gambia when the president refused to leave power. They invaded the country and then they dealt with that issue. I mean, I think the situation is still ongoing, but they've done military interventions before. So this wouldn't be the first time that they did it. But however, Burkina Faso, Mali and Guinea-Bissau already said that they're not going to go along with the sanctions. And as you heard over there, Mali and Burkina Faso said that anyone who attacks Niger will be attacking us and we're going to declare war. So if ECOWAS decides to intervene militarily, they will have to go to war with 3 of their members. So most likely, if they intervene, it will be pretty much the end of ECOWAS. And by the way, this is an economic union. I don't even understand why they have to worry about a country being democratic or not being democratic. I think it's nonsense. And it just shows you that a lot of these organizations that we had in Africa, they work for the West. They don't really work for us. But anyways, if we continue from there, the biggest reason why I personally think there will not be any military intervention is because the people are clearly supporting this. I mean, they tried democracy and it seems that it failed. All the videos that you can see from Niger are people demonstrating for the coup. If you go to invade now, if French soldiers go and try to take down the military, they will not only be facing the military of Niger, they will also be facing the civilians. Same thing with ECOWAS. So there will be a lot of civilian casualties. And if the coup leaders, they say that we're being invaded, people will come to the streets. And people will be attacking any military that attacks their country. So it's a bit different than the situation in Libya, where they supposedly had people demonstrating against the government. If a lot of people were coming out, and that's what they were hoping in the beginning, is that people will come out and demonstrate for democracy and that they could use that as a guise to promote intervention. But now, if they try to intervene, it will be a debacle. People are going to see a lot of civilian casualties. I mean, we talk about democracy, but isn't that a democratic thing? People came out the street, they clearly showed that they were supporting this. Isn't that a sign of democracy? So I don't think there will be an intervention because of this, because it will be the end of ECOWAS as we know it, and on top of that, there will be a lot of civilian casualties. So I don't think that's a good look for France right now, especially since they are in this power competition between China and Russia. Now, if I quickly talk about Russia, Russian government officially has condemned it. The Wagner leader said something that this is a great anti-colonial movement, and you've seen in the demonstration a lot of people waving the Russian flag. But what I've seen, I don't think Russia had any part to any of this. I think a lot of these people are just tired of France and they're tired of the Western nonsense. They want the Western soldiers out of their country. They want economic development. They want fair prices for their resources. I doubt it absolutely has nothing to do with Putin or with Russia. That's just my opinion. But anyways, I hope about this video, and if you did, please do remember to subscribe, like, share and comment.